Welcome. I'd like to thank each of you for joining me today. I'm Stacey Shabel. I'm the Senior Vice Chair of the Institute of Internal Auditors Global Board of Directors. And I'm very excited to assume the chair role for the board starting in June of this year. I'm really looking forward to helping lead the profession for the coming year and help each of you accomplish your goals and objectives. Today, we're going to talk about building trust in the age of AI acceleration. As we look at the environment, risk is reshaping strategy faster than traditional assurance can keep up. And trust is what allows organizations to move forward. Internal audit's role is evolving from reactive cyclical assurance to a strategic function that anticipates risk, embeds trust, and enables innovation. Shaping strategy means understanding how operating models, technology, and governance intersect and where risk is headed. AI isn't just another risk. It's a force that compresses time, talent, and trust all at once. Driving trust means focusing on outcomes over activity, elevating conversations, and delivering assurance that informs better decisions. The IIA is supporting this shift through operating model evolution, innovation, and standards to help the profession define the next era of internal audit impact. And today's conversation is about how internal audit is operating under real pressure, tighter resources, faster strategy cycles, and an increasingly complex and evolving risk environment. We'll start by grounding ourselves in the external risk landscape, then look at how internal audit's operating model has to move in step with strategy as risks become more interconnected and decisions move faster. From there, we'll turn to the implications of AI for governance, adoption, trust, oversight, and accountability in a world where decisions are increasingly automated. And finally, we'll focus on impact, what internal audit relevance looks like today, and how the IIA is helping the profession build the capabilities, confidence, and pipeline to keep the profession relevant tomorrow. Throughout the session, I'll draw on insights from the IIA's latest Pulse research to keep this grounded in what internal audit leaders are seeing right now. Internal audit today is operating under sustained pressure. More risk, more complexity, and fewer resources to absorb it. How we respond to that pressure determines whether audit remains reactive or becomes truly strategic. These changes within internal audit often challenge more traditional approaches to our work, requiring a shift in mindset towards new, innovative ways of engaging with our activities. Leadership shapes the innovation cycle inside internal audit. It starts with creating the conditions for openness to change, encouraging experimentation, and ensuring teams feel safe, challenging assumptions, and trying new approaches. Without that foundation, innovation fails before it starts. It then moves to supporting the practice. That means helping teams move from ideas to action and making deliberate choices about where to invest time, resources, and attention. This is where leadership signals what really matters. And finally, impact is amplified when innovation is clearly connected to outcomes. Leaders help frame why these changes matter, how they support organizational objectives, and how they strengthen trust with stakeholders. The key shift is this: innovation isn't about doing more things differently. It's about focusing innovation where it advances strategy, improves decision-making, and delivers real value. That is what impact looks like today. When strategy and resources don't align, the strain shows up in people. Skill gaps, burnout, and reliance on external providers are symptoms of a system under pressure. Internal audit leaders are being forced to rethink talent models, not just by hiring more, but by deploying skills differently. The IIA's response isn't just to train people differently, it's to fundamentally change how internal audit functions can scale. The AI-enabled Coordinated Assurance Certificate Program, which I'll talk about more in a moment, is a direct answer to what we've just seen. When you can't hire your way out of a skill gap, you have to work smarter. That means equipping teams with the tools, methods, and judgment to monitor risk continuously. This is where innovation becomes practical, not aspirational. Last year, the IIA, along with 5 other professional bodies, collaborated with ACCA on its Combating Fraud report. And what it found was this: risks are becoming more complex, digital, and interconnected. This means traditional retrospective reviews are insufficient for emerging threats. Early insight is a must. Advanced analytics, continuous risk monitoring, and AI-enabled assurance allows internal audit to extend its reach without extending its headcount. Yet in the report, we see that less than half of organizations are conducting fraud risk assessments annually. Some are only doing so after an incident has occurred. That's why the IIA's work in analytic guidance and AI-enabled assurance is designed to help functions scale insight, not workload. As an organization, the IIA is committed to providing practical, forward-looking programs and solutions that are focused on real-world application, such as its new AI-enabled Coordinated Assurance Certificate Program, designed to help internal audit, risk, and compliance leaders use AI to strengthen collaboration, reduce duplication, and deliver clear insights to stakeholders and executives. If you're thinking about how AI fits into your assurance model, I encourage you to start here. Innovation in monitoring strengthens our ability to detect risk, but the harder challenge is ensuring our judgment evolves as quickly as AI itself. We're starting with the reality internal audit is facing today. Risk is moving faster, becoming more interconnected, and showing up in places traditional assurance wasn't designed to reach. This isn't about more risk, it's about different risk. And understanding that shift is the foundation for everything that follows. As you can see here, the 2026 Risk in Focus report highlights some high-risk areas for all regions globally, including cybersecurity and digital disruption. Cybersecurity continues to be the #1 in risk ranking, and internal audit, both in risk ranking and internal audit priorities across regions. And digital disruption, coming right behind it, is just amplifying that risk, really making the bad guys smarter and making it a necessity for us, the good guys, to be smarter as well. Globally, geopolitical and macroeconomic uncertainty is peaking at levels not seen since the COVID pandemic. Less than 5 years removed from the global emergency, organizations are struggling to cope with new volatility and uncertainty from policy changes over the past year. Here in Europe, however, digital disruption and business resilience saw the biggest increase in perceived risk levels compared to the previous year. This is why the shift from reactive to anticipatory matters for strategy. Reactive assurance is, by design, backward-looking. It validates what's already happened, often on a cycle that made sense when change moved more slowly. But digital transformation, AI, and always-on data don't operate on audit cycles. They operate in real time. An anticipatory internal audit function helps leaders see where risk is forming, not just where it has already materialized. It helps organizations move faster with clarity and confidence. This reflects a clear shift the IIA is seeing globally. Internal audit moving upstream, focusing on emerging risk and decision points rather than post-event validation. Which brings us here. We're seeing it in real time. Workforce strategy has moved front and center in AI planning. More than half of industry leaders across banking, technology, media, and telecommunications now list hiring and workforce impact as key AI considerations. What does that tell us? Workforce gaps aren't peripheral. They're directly tied to how organizations govern and scale AI responsibly. Organizations are even willing to pay premiums for AI skills, and new hybrid roles are emerging that blend technical, strategic, and judgment capabilities, all reinforcing the point that staffing is strategic control risk, not just a budget line item. As AI becomes increasingly embedded in organizations, the internal audit function's role in delivering trusted assurance and strategic insight is more critical than ever. One way the IIA is equipping internal auditors to lead confidently in an AI-driven world is through resources like its AI auditing framework, which we'll talk about in a moment, and its AI Knowledge Center. Grounded in the IPPF's Global Internal Audit Standards, topical requirements, and global guidance, as well as the 3 lines model. Designed as a centralized hub for internal auditors, the IIA AI Knowledge Center provides practical tools and guides and learning resources to help auditors position themselves and their functions at the forefront of trust, governance, and innovation when it comes to AI. We know everyone learns differently, so the Knowledge Center highlights podcasts, videos, webinars, trainings, both on demand and in person, plus conferences and other events where you can engage in real dialogue and peer exchange. I encourage you to explore, use, and share the AI Knowledge Center. As strategy accelerates, internal audit can't remain static. Operating models built for slower, more predictable environments struggle when decisions are made in real time and risk span functions. This section looks at how internal audit is adapting and aligning more closely with enterprise strategy while preserving its independence and credibility. We've talked about how risk is moving faster, but that reality ought to reshape how we audit. The traditional audit plan, periodic, cyclical, anchored to a calendar, simply can't keep up with always-on data, real-time risk, and algorithmic decisioning. It gives us reports about what happened, not confidence in what's happening now. What internal audit needs is forward-looking, continuous signals, exception-based proactive assurance, and confidence indicators that tell leaders what they need to know when they need to know it. This concept is grounded in how the IIA sees assurance evolving, from periodic opinions to continuous decision-relevant insight that leadership can rely on real time. Across the profession, internal audit functions are being asked to deliver more value faster and with deeper insight, all while navigating the new standards, digital disruption, and increasingly connected risks. That's why an operating model refresh is no longer something you do every few years. It's becoming a necessary continuous design challenge. It's about balance. How do you preserve independence while also being agile enough to stay relevant as risks shift? We see several clear shifts emerging. Audit plans are becoming more dynamic. Assurance is becoming more connected across the 3 lines. And technology is moving from a support tool to a core enabler, from risk sensing to analytics to AI-assisted reporting. But perhaps the most important shift is human. The future operating model isn't just built on technical audit skills, it's built on judgment, digital fluency, and the ability to influence decisions at the right moment. Trust is no longer something organizations simply have. In today's environment with complex data flows, AI-driven decisions, and interconnected reporting ecosystems, trust has to be deliberately designed, monitored, and sustained. That's where internal audit plays a unique role. We're not just checking whether controls exist. We're assessing how trust is created, how it can quietly erode, and how it's repaired when systems, data, or decisions go wrong. Governance is how trust gets enforced. Without it, trust becomes aspirational instead of operational. This is not theoretical. It reflects on how the IIA sees internal audit's role expanding as trust becomes something that must be intentionally designed, governed, and sustained in AI-driven systems. When the pace of change outstrips traditional assurance cycles, innovation becomes a necessity. This section explores how technology, talent, and new assurance approaches are reshaping what effective oversight looks like, and why standing still now carries its own risk. In fact, we're already seeing this happen. A majority, 83% of respondents in our fraud and AI survey, expect to increase its use of AI over the next year. This alone tells us AI use isn't optional. But increased adoption also raises the bar for responsibility. As AI becomes more embedded in audit work, internal auditors need to understand not just how these tools work, but how they can be misused. AI changes how decisions are made, how fraud occurs, and how quickly issues propagate. The risk isn't AI itself, it's applying traditional assurance models to a fundamentally different system. This is why the IIA is focused on anticipatory assurance, AI governance, and trust architecture, helping audit teams evolve at the same pace as the risk. A recent Foundation and Optro study reveals ways in which bad actors are weaponizing AI, not just to execute novel fraud schemes, but to automate and scale traditional methods of unprecedented sophistication. Internal auditors are uniquely positioned to advise leadership and test the controls organizations rely on to prevent fraud. Yet the data exposes a critical gap. Fewer than 4 in 10 senior internal audit leaders feel adequately prepared to detect AI-enabled fraud. This gap isn't just a risk, it's an opportunity. But closing it requires more than new tools or training. It demands a fundamental mindset shift, one that positions internal audit not as a reactive insurance provider, but as proactive strategic advisors who anticipate, adapt, and lead in the face of emerging threats. To help close this gap, the IIA's AI Knowledge Center, which we talked about earlier, consolidates governance guidance, implementation tools, and thought leadership to help audit teams strengthen AI readiness in practice. As AI-enabled risks outpace preparedness, the challenge shifts to managing decision speed and whether governance can keep up. As organizations digitize, automate, and embed AI into core processes, the speed of decision-making increases dramatically. But governance models, including assurance, were built for slower, more linear worlds. This is the tension leaders are feeling today. AI is accelerating decisions faster than traditional governance models were designed to handle, and it's opening organizations up to risk. For example, operation leaders identify the rapid speed of disruptive innovations enabled by new and emerging technologies as a top near-term risk, along with talent and regulatory uncertainty. That's why governing speed matters. Oversight can't be episodic or reactive. It has to be designed into how decisions are made. This is where internal audit's role begins to shift, from reviewing outcomes after the fact to helping leaders understand whether guardrails are working in real time. We've spent time talking about how risk is evolving and how AI, talent, and governance pressures are reshaping expectations for internal audit. But here's what I believe. Our future won't be defined by the risks around us. It will be defined by how intentionally we respond. So now I want to talk about the response. How we respond must strengthen our impact, understand the awareness gap in students and young professionals, and support investing in the next generation of internal auditors. Because if we want this profession to remain essential, we have to build what comes next. Renaming and rebranding the IIA's position papers as globally important statements of position articulating the IIA's official perspective on interpretation of or advocacy for key aspects impacting the internal auditing profession is a key focus of the IIA. Currently underway are the 3 lines model and enterprise risk management. The 3 lines model clarifies the balance between assurance and advisory within a principles-based governance framework. And enterprise risk management focus recognizes more strongly how all 3 lines contribute to assurance, internal audit's coordinating role, and practical implementation guidance that acknowledges blended roles and appropriate safeguards. In addition, the topical requirements are a key focus, including cybersecurity that became effective in Q1 of 2026, organizational resilience being published in Q2 of this year, anti-corruption, which will have a consultation period here starting this quarter, and talent management, which will follow quickly for consultation in Q3. The IAA also released a total of 30 pieces of guidance in 2025, including practice guides, G-tags, and tools. And 2026's focus is on sector-specific guidance, AI, and ERM. So lots to come. Also, the IIA's Global Advocacy Team is focusing on partnership with national institutes, really helping influence how the internal audit profession is viewed and written into law across the globe, elevating our impact and making sure that our value to our organizations are recognized. And when we look at students and why they aren't choosing internal audit as a career path, we find the largest barrier is awareness. Nearly half of students in our recent study said they simply don't understand what internal auditors do. If the profession's purpose, impact, and relevance aren't clear, we shouldn't be surprised when students don't see internal audit as a place where they can build meaningful careers. If we want to set up not just these students, but our profession as a whole for success, we have a responsibility to clearly articulate how internal audit shapes decisions, strengthens trust, and operates at the intersection of strategy, technology, and ethics. With the right guidance and educational opportunities, we can help students better understand what we do and give them a reason to want it for themselves. Closing this gap will require more than messaging. It means showing up earlier, engaging differently, and helping students see internal audit as a profession built for curiosity, judgment, and impact. The Internal Audit Academic Alliance is doing just that. It's a comprehensive tiered program designed to advance shared educational goals. It consists of 5 distinct levels, each aligned to support internal audit curriculum development and teaching, fostering research and innovation, and building a strong global network of faculty collaboration and student engagement. It offers schools a clear path forward, whether they're just beginning to introduce internal audit as a career path or already recognized the profession as a great place for students to work. It lowers barriers to entry and supports diverse types of faculty engagement and can be scaled globally. There are also a number of exciting opportunities and changes on the horizon for those looking to take the next step in their internal audit career path. There's a new third pathway for those pursuing the CIA Challenge exam. Internal auditors with at least 7 years of experience now will be eligible to apply for the Challenge exam. Likewise, the accounting pathway for the CIA Challenge exam has added 15 new accounting bodies, nearly doubling in growth and expanding access to program applications across the world. All the challenge exams have been updated to align with the new standards, and the IAP Internal Audit Practitioner Certification is now a permanent certification, meaning it is now the first part of achieving the CIA exam. IAP holders now only need to take 2 additional exams to earn their CIA. And finally, the IAA has partnered with Becker on a new study product, which is available now, and I have heard absolutely great feedback on from my peers. As we look to wrap up today, if we reflect our conversation and we think about how internal audit has never had more access to data, more visibility with stakeholders, or more ambiguity about its role. At the same time, risk is moving faster than cyclical assurance models were designed to handle. This is driven by AI, digital transformation, talent constraints, and rising stakeholder expectation. This moment isn't about adopting technology for its own sake. It's about redefining what assurance means as our profession shifts from reactive reviews to anticipatory insight, from checking controls to strengthening trust. That's where the IAA is focused, evolving operating models, advancing innovation, modernizing standards, and helping internal audit measure outcomes by impact. The message is clear. This evolution affects how you prioritize work, how you deploy your teams, and how confidently leadership relies on internal audit to help it navigate uncertainty. And for the profession, it marks a defining shift from assurance as a function to a strategic capability in their organizations. Thank you so much for joining me today for our conversation and my presentation. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, so please connect with me, and I look forward to meeting each of you in the future. Thank you.